I already
Good.
posted, by the way. Oh,
Oh,
shit, I
God,
knew it. If I
God
wouldn't
dang you.
if I wouldn't if I would have said nothing, it would have taken another minute. Go ahead.
Oh, just another great day here at Ghetto Fabulous Productions. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of The Fat Minute. I am, of course, your flustered host, Don John, joined tonight by my ill-timed co-host, BVJ.
Hello.
I see what you did there.
Yep.
All right, so we got a fun episode tonight. I've been looking forward to this episode for a while, and it's also the first of a two-parter, so I've been looking forward to both of these episodes for a while. So what are we doing tonight? Tonight, like I said, first of a two-parter episode where Blake and I, we each made our a list of our top five favorite TV shows, and we basically went in with the idea of if you had to show one episode of each of these shows to somebody who knew nothing about the show or who knew almost nothing about this show at least,
Or to
which
sell them on giving it a chance.
right, which episode would you pick? And we made a list
Hmm.
and we watched each other's list and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about it. And tonight we're doing Blake's list.
Hmm.
And then so it should be a fun time tonight. So let me pull up your list real quick. We'll just go ahead and dive right into it here. So I'll just read off what shows you have me watch. You have me watch Watchmen, New Girl, Community, Psych, and Frasier. So
Hmm.
interesting list here. And I mean, one reason I really loved, well, one reason why I've really been looking forward to these episodes is because as far as our like dynamic and relationship goes, like our love, appreciation, and discussion of like performance art in general, whether it be TV or the big screen or what have you, that's always been like a
Hmm.
huge milestone of our particular dynamic and relationship. And
Hmm.
I feel like this is just an episode that is very much like right up our alley. It gives us like a good look into like who we are personality wise and the way we think and our sense of humors and how they contrast and also kind of have similarities.
Right. Right.
Are you playing with something on your desk?
No, I'm actually just pacing around my kitchen.
Oh, okay. I must be hearing your footsteps then.
Okay, I'll sit down then.
Let's go ahead and we'll just jump into. We'll go through each episode in the order that I watched them. So we'll start off with
Okay.
Watchmen. You had me watch the HBO Watchmen series, episode 6, This Extraordinary Being. So first, let me ask you, why did this show make your list, and why this particular episode?
So, and first of all, I feel like this is the odd series out because every other show I have on this list is a comedy. It's a straight up sitcom. And
Right.
then I have I have a drama. But yeah, so
A gritty one at that.
a gritty one, a very gritty one. And um no, I mean like I watched it, almost in real time. There was like, I watched the premiere of it 2 years ago. It
Was it 2 years
2019,
ago?
already 2 years ago. It was
I
October
thought it premiered.
2019 it
I thought it
premiered.
premiered in 2020.
No, no, no,
Oh shit.
no. They just did the thing where,
Oh, where it was on Hulu for like a week or two.
yeah, they did it like summer 2020 for Juneteenth. It was free for anybody to watch,
Yeah.
and yeah, 2020 was when it won like virtually every Emmy it was nominated for, which I felt was very much deserved. And it was only 9 episodes, and you know, um, if anyone says it was canceled or let go, that's not true. That's not what happened. It's just Damon Lindelof and his writing team um, they had 8 episodes to tell. They wanted to do a one and done, in and out, open and shut of their own, legacy sequel to the Watchmen IP. And that's another thing. Is like I've tried to, I was recommending the show to my brother-in-law, and he goes, "Do I have to see the movie first?" And I'm like, "No, this is a sequel to the book, not the movie." And I guess like you could watch the movie and still like you wouldn't be completely lost because the main thing about the movie is that it changes the ending. Like if you were
Hmm.
to only watch the movie and then watch this, it'd be like, well, what the fuck is all this squid stuff?
Squid
But
Game. I don't know. I didn't watch the anime.
right, but this show made, I'm sorry, I was kind of going off the rails there. This show made my list because I mean, I am more of a movie person than a TV person, but every now and then I try to sit down and I try to watch a series, or I try to watch, a limited series at least. And this show was masterful, in my opinion. I was completely impressed by it. And specifically, and I think like overall, a lot of it like does get better as it goes along. Like when you watch that pilot, it's like, where's this even going? Like, how is this supposed to,
Hmm.
blossom? But I think this episode right here is probably the best hour of dramatic genre television I have ever watched. So I thought it was an easy shoe in, especially like I'm like, okay, we can goof around the rest of the night, but I want to take a period where we are a little more serious on my episode.
All right. Well, I went into the show. I tried watching this show last summer,
Hmm.
and I'm just not a huge fan of the Watchmen IP in general. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm not the biggest fan of the movie. Like I don't think it's a bad movie. I'm not in love with it. And part of that I feel like is just because I feel like the Watchmen IP, at least as far as like the movie and the original book goes, its message is just so long-winded, and
Hmm.
it it's just very easy to lose interest throughout.
It, it it's also arguably an obsolete message now. It's like, oh, I'm going to make a worldwide event so bad that it's going to bring everybody together, and
Yeah.
it's like,
Well,
what?
that well that was a fucking lie.
Yeah, it's like, well, 2020 didn't prove that theory.
But when this show, I tried to watch this show last summer when they did that thing where it was on Hulu for like a week or two or whatever for free because I didn't have HBO at the time, and I couldn't get into it. I got through the first two episodes, and I was like, I had a moment where I was about to start the third episode, and I just went, never mind, and I never finished it. And like, I agree 100% with you. That first episode, you're just like, where the fuck is this going? And
Hmm.
by the end of the second episode, I just didn't care. I didn't care, and I didn't like get it, for lack of a better term.
Hmm.
So I went into this episode just, with minimal context. Like I said, minimal context, only having seen the first two episodes, and at this point, not really remembering much about what goes on in them.
Hmm.
And for the most part, I did enjoy this episode. I think it is, it's a very, very gripping and very thrilling episode that doesn't let you go at all throughout the whole hour. It doesn't pull any of its punches, and
Yeah.
it's a very bland and frank depiction of prejudice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I also think it's also great because we finally get a backstory and a look into the personal life of Hooded Justice, who's like probably the only character from the original story that we know nothing about, like nothing confirmed. Everything
Right.
about him is speculative in the original story. So it's
Right.
cool. It's cool to see, like, finally see who is under the hood,
Yeah.
and in like the story they gave him too. It's just a very complex and multi-layered story with how he starts a family and then he begins this affair with another man behind his wife's back, and
Yeah.
he thinks this other man that he's having this affair with is gonna help him, bring justice for his people because he is a black man,
Right.
and that's not the case at all. Even amongst this team of other heroes who worship and idolize him for the movement he started, don't think they only see him for the costume. They don't see him for the man. And I think it's a very interesting multi-layered perspective throughout this whole episode.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, Now, one question I had is when you started the episode, did it have a previously on Watchmen? Because I totally forget if it does.
I think it did. I'm not
Okay.
entirely sure.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Because the previous episode really does bleed right into it with I mean the reason why and the reason how we're able to see the Hooded Justice's
Oh yeah,
backstory is that
because his granddaughter took like a drug that was
a
meant for
whole
Alzheimer's. She ODs basically on a experimental drug meant for Alzheimer's patients to help them remember their past basically.
right. Yeah, on
She takes her
nostalgia,
yeah
other people's memories.
yeah, well, she takes her grand because it turns out Hooded Justice is her grandfather.
Right. So I mean, other than that, because you have like the in and out of like she's hallucinating all this. This, I guess, flashback is a dream sequence.
Hmm.
What I love about this episode is that, and I told this to Michael, because I saw the episode before he did. He was like always like one episode behind me by the time he was able to start it when it was showing on HBO.
Hmm.
And one of the things I said to him is, this episode is in a lot of ways kind of like a short film in and of itself.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it's it's just, and like you said, it's a very brutally honest depiction of racism, and it's like,
And even homophobia to a much lesser degree.
I mean, yeah, I mean, and that was one of the things I really respected about the show, is that it did seek to be rather progressive, but never like, it didn't seem pretentious or preachy in how it was trying to be progressive. I felt
Hmm.
that it did feel natural. It didn't feel patronizing, I guess you could say, or pandering.
Right.
Um, but but yeah, I mean, it was very much a short film in and of itself, and with its depiction of racism, you would think that in a lot of other stuff, if there were to be superheroes fighting, characters who were racist, they would make the racists like, I guess, kind of like bumbling idiots almost,
Right.
like you'd almost seem like a meaner version of the Three Stooges and stuff. I mean, that's what a lot of older movies did with like the Nazis and stuff. The
Hmm.
Nazis were a bunch of dummies or whatever, but
Hmm.
no, in this, like, they're terrifying. They're horrible
Yeah.
people, and
Yeah.
I mean, they're horrible people in real life. So it's like, don't try to have any moments of them being comedic relief, or it's like, oh, haha, they accidentally blew themselves up or whatever. But no, I mean, it
And
is.
it's also very real in who the racists in the story are. It very much reflects real life because in real life the worst people are people that either a you expect to be a step or two above everybody else morally, like the police, because a lot
Mm,
of the police are in on it, and then or two, it's just it could also just be some guy that you just kind of take for granted in your everyday routine, like the guy who owns the local grocery store. So
right.
it's a very real depiction too in that regard.
Right, right. And but yeah, I mean, it's two moments that I absolutely love is when it's doing, like, I guess, the tracking shot of him like leaving the police station and going on the city block, and
Hmm.
he's talking to the guy at the newspaper stand, and he's reading Action Comics #1.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he goes, "Oh, taking a little break today, huh?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, more hopeful." And he's
yeah,
like, "Oh, what's it about?" And yeah, he describes the bare bones plot to Superman. And then also, like, I'm sorry, like, seeing him get his revenge and burn down that whole place is
yeah.
like, is very sweet to watch. But yeah, I mean,
I
it's
hadn't seen a Black Power scene that was more cathartic since Django Unchained when he burned down the whole plantation after shooting everybody up.
absolutely, in fact, and once again, like, even Django Unchained goes a little bit for laughs or whatever, like,
Hmm.
but this movie is like, with Django Unchained, you're like, haha, yeah, yeah, get it. And then
Yeah,
with this movie, it's like, oh yeah, fuck those dudes. Like,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, no, it's one of those where, you know, I I have all these big compliments for it, but it's just one of those episodes where it's just simply great. It is just wonderful. I hope maybe even, well, I mean, I won't put you on the spot for it. I'll just simply ask, would you say that this episode has perhaps inspired you to give the rest of the series as a whole another chance sooner or later?
that's what I was going to get into next because I do want to try to rate each of these shows in that regard. Since we are
Mm-hmm.
doing, since our whole point of doing this, I guess, was to see like to pick an episode that we would try to sell somebody this show. Um,
Right.
So, like I said, I watched the first two episodes, didn't get into it. Watched this episode and very much enjoyed it. So, I think, yeah, after watching this episode, I would at some point like to go back and, especially since it's only 9 episodes,
Right.
go back and watch the whole series. Um, maybe not binge watch it, but maybe watch it here and there, and then
Right.
just to finish it, just to finally get the whole story.
Right. As much as I can compliment and would want to defend the show, I am very much like, um, I am very much in agreement that the pilot episode is frankly overhyped. Like a lot of people, like I remember Slash
It's
Film
so
posted an
fucking
article saying,
boring.
I just, but also like it throws you into this world and yes, and I don't mean to sound like one of those dummies that like complained about the first two episodes of WandaVision, but I know, you can't have all these answers up front in the very first episode. That's the entire point of there being more episodes, more series. But I felt like with the first episode, you're just watching random stuff happen, and there's
Well,
no
it has a similar problem to Star Wars Episode 7. It's supposed like there's 30 years between this TV show and the ending of the book, and like this whole world has like gone through all these changes, and we don't know what any of them are, and we're just
right,
thrown
right.
into it.
Well, and one of the things that like they that you would have to remember from the book is that Ronald Reagan never becomes the president. It's Robert Redford,
Yeah.
which the actor. I guess that was the joke, but yeah, because in the movie Zack Snyder changed it back to saying Ronald Reagan because he's like, I feel like a lot of teenagers in 2009 are going to be like Robert Redford. So, but yeah.
All right, well then we'll move on to the next show, New Girl.
Hmm.
You had me watch season 5, episode 17, Road Trip. And I wasn't completely unfamiliar with New Girl. My ex especially like watched a lot of it, especially
Hmm.
during last summer. But I never like it was always background noise to me. I would never really pay much attention to it. It was
Hmm.
just kind of there and whatever for me. So watching this episode is the first time I really like sat down and gave my complete undivided attention to an episode. So just why why did this show make your list and why this episode?
Um, and I think like this will now echo for the rest of the episodes for tonight is that, you know, the reason why I selected these episodes is I like these shows as a whole, but there is very much like many episodes within these series where it's like, okay, there was like one great gag in the middle or near the end or even the very beginning, and then the rest of it is just okay. It's just like you would say, it's just like comfort background. But every now and then, a series will have an episode that I think is just slaps the entire way through. Like everything, every joke they go for is just a banger in my opinion. And yeah, with this episode, like I laughed at probably every joke, or at least every other joke they tried to do. So that's what got it on here for me.
Well, I watched this episode, and out of everything that you had me watch on the list, this is probably the thing I disliked the most. Um,
Really?
yes, I did not enjoy this at all. Um,
Wow.
and maybe it's just not the right episode. Maybe there's
Hmm.
episodes that are better, but
Hmm.
this episode really made me realize already that like without Zoe Deschanel, because she's only in like the first like she's only in the whole episode for like a minute in the opening act.
Hmm. Hmm.
Without Zoe Deschanel, this whole show does not hold together at all because these characters are so fucking annoying. Um, what's
Damn.
what Schmidt, the one who's getting married that they throw like the bachelor trip for.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
he's an asshole. Um, he's just an asshole. There's nothing redeemable about this dude. And like his whole shtick is that he's the asshole who's trying to become the good guy. It's like, okay, we've seen that a million times already. Like, pick a different record.
yeah. Mm.
Nick is just annoying, and then Winston is just a fucking cringy crybaby. Um,
My God.
all three of these dudes fucking suck. I feel about these three dudes the same way you feel about Ted from How I Met Your Mother. They're all a bunch of fucking bitches. I do not like them. And like the whole premise of this episode, not guys who aren't manly trying to do a manly thing like take a giant road trip together. It's so overdone. They even go to like the biggest stereotypical place ever. They try to go to Vegas. Like this whole premise has been so overdone by so many different things, and better, mind you. Um, this is like a lot of the jokes were just really cringy. Nothing really laugh out loud funny happens. The only thing that I thought was funny at the end was when they get into the bar fight while Katy Perry's playing in the background. Um,
Hmm.
that was pretty funny. Um, like
I liked
a lot of the jokes just don't land. Like the one joke that's like literally 3 minutes in where they're talking about going to Las Vegas, and the one dude's like, "I'm ready for some Sin City Strange. I don't care if it's man, woman, or child." That's a bit much 3 fucking minutes into this thing. Um, and it just overall feels like a filler episode. Um,
I don't know if it was made apparent like around the rest of the episode, but I think I forgot to mention that this like one episode you had recommended to me. This episode is like a companion episode to another. It's like a two-parter where I think it's the episode right after this one, or maybe it was the one before. I forget. You see what the ladies were doing the entire time this was going on.
I mean, hey, maybe that episode's better. Maybe I would enjoy that episode more. But I can tell you right now, I didn't like this episode at all. Um,
Hmm.
I'm glad it ended when it did. And
Okay.
yeah, like, would this episode make me watch the show? No. If anything, this episode would probably make me leave the room if somebody turned it on. Um, I just this episode just didn't do it for me, and I don't see myself seeking out this show to watch for my own enjoyment anytime soon.
Well, that's I guess that's a bummer. I mean, I don't hold it against you at all. But but yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe it would have been interesting to be in the room with you as it was playing, but yeah, it's just I just felt that this one had the most consistent laughs for me. So I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to the next show, Community, and you had me watch season 3, episode 7, Basic Lupine Urology.
Hmm.
So why this show? Why this episode?
So I grew up with Law and Order playing in my house almost constantly. My mom is a huge fan of the OG Law and Order
Of
with
course she
Jerry
is.
Orbach. Yeah, with Jerry Orbach and Sam Waterston and Chris Noth, I believe was his name. He was also like Sarah Jessica Parker's on again, off again boyfriend in Sex and the City. So and I had seen, and she also played the other Law and Orders, and Gabby is a huge fan of Law and Order SVU, which I feel like is hands down like the most popular Law and Order now, and has
Hmm.
been for a while.
Longest
And
running.
yeah, yeah, and at one time it was the OG Law and Order, obviously, but then it ended like 12 years ago, but it's coming back, so I don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, I was very much familiar with the pacing and aesthetic and formula of a Law and Order episode,
Hmm.
and and I thought this episode of Community absolutely nailed it. I thought it was a perfect parody of it was a perfect parody of one show trying to spoof another show that they almost have nothing in common with, but I felt it worked really well.
All right. Well, I watched this episode, and Community, kind of similar to New Girl, I had seen maybe like a couple episodes as background noise, and I don't even think I
Hmm.
even saw a single episode all the way through. Um,
Hmm.
but I watched this, gave it my complete undivided attention, and this episode is so silly. It's so silly. Um, one joke that really tickled the shit out of me is at the like near the beginning when the main guy, his name's Jeff, I think. He's at
Right.
the hot dog stand. He's like, keep the change and the hot dog.
that's that's almost in the same realm as did you eat my fries?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Keep the change and the hot
and
dog.
the hot dog. No, that joke got me good.
The part where Gabby and I like immediately fell in love and like, okay, this episode's gonna be great, is when they're interrogating Starburns
and I was getting the
and
Starburns because
and but she it's making it look like it's the interrogation room with like the double-sided mirror and the glass, and she
yeah,
just knocks
yeah,
on the fish tank or whatever
yeah.
like that. That was when I was like, okay, this is gonna be a good one.
I could see and hear you.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I was about to get the Starburns because one thing I noticed about this episode is despite how silly it is, it's honestly only a slight exaggeration of what goes on in community college. Um,
Right.
because I'm looking at this cast of characters, I'm like, Yo, we had our own versions of these fucking characters when we went to college.
Oh yeah,
We had our own version of Starburns. Like he existed.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and our friend Zach, who's been on the show before, and his buddy Benji were literally our version of Abed and Trey. Um,
Troy,
Troy, excuse me. Yeah, that like
Troy.
despite how silly and goofy it is, it's only a slight exaggeration of the community college experience.
Right,
Like we
right.
all had our own version of these quirky ass messed up characters. Um,
hmm
so I thought it was a pretty funny episode. Um, so I would probably go back and give it like a season's worth of give it a try and see if I
hmm
like it and see if it can keep my attention. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty funny episode.
I'll do you one better. Sometime I'll have to have you over, and there was like this a trend and tradition, like I don't think it happens in the first season, but some of the like season finales would do this thing where there would be like a paintball gun war on
Hmm.
campus, and those are a lot of fun. Like they turn it into either like a noir style or a western style showdown or even a war film. And no, no, I'll definitely have to watch. I think they do it at least two times. I don't think they do it a third time, but I'll definitely have to watch those with you eventually.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to our next show, Psych. Why this show? Why this episode?
I think it shows a lot of Sean and Gus's love for cinema. Because at the heart of the show, they are just two normal buddies that just so happen to solve crimes together, and solve especially murders together. And I felt like this one had a few more movie references than other episodes would have. And I think what I like about Psych is there are times where it very much feels like, what if I tried to become a private eye and one of you just enabled me and tagged along? Like there are a lot of moments where I would be Sean and you would be Gus. Um, but yeah, I back to what I had said about New Girl. I like Psych as a whole, and I love a lot of episodes. But this was the one that I felt consistently had the most laughs for me. And then also, I thought there was like a really good, not a subplot, but a parallel plot where it tries to humanize the chief or the captain or whatever, the hard ass cop who's always like strict with them. It tries
Lassie.
to, yeah, Lassie. It tries to make you like him a little bit more finally, because the one thing I will say is, despite me using this as my I guess my sample for you, my appetizer for you. In this one, Sean and Gus very much take the back seat, and really, like Lassie is the main protagonist of the episode.
Hmm.
But but yeah, no, I'll give it back to you.
All right. Well, we are talking about, of course, Psych, season 6, episode 3. This episode sucks, which I think is a somewhat accurate title. Um,
Aw.
so you're talking about how this episode tries to make like the hard ass cop Lassie like more likable, tries to humanize him more. This episode
hmm
didn't make me like him at all, because the whole subplot of him chasing after the girl from the bar, it's kind of dumb, and two, it's kind of creepy. Like he uses his position of power and resources within the police force to track this girl down before she's like a suspect in this case, and
hmm
that's creepy and illegal. Um,
Right.
and it's just a really kind of like over the top and silly and dumb like subplot, and it just kind of felt like it was just shoehorned in to like give him something to do, I guess.
hmm
Um, and when I'm thinking about the original premise of this series, I started off feeling like it was kind of silly, like the idea of like this dude pretending to be a psychic to like
hmm
basically get money off of solving cases and whatever with the police. But then I
hmm
thought about it, I'm like, no, actually, that when you think about it, this is pretty much how actual quote unquote psychics work. Just
Yeah.
noticing little details and shit. I mean, there's a great episode of South Park about those TV psychics that like swindle people out of money and shit. Like it,
Yeah.
yeah, like so like I went from silly to being like, okay, actually, this is kind of how actual quote unquote psychics work, to being like kind of going from that to like, okay, the more I think about the premise is actually kind of dumb, because why doesn't Sean just try to become a cop, because or a detective, because I'm pretty sure a photographic memory like his would very much be a welcome asset amongst the police force. Why does he got to go through this whole charade of pretending to be a psychic? Um,
Because he's a slacker.
but he's still going through all the same shit. Like, I mean, he's still putting in the work. I mean,
I mean, wasn't very much the backstory or the, I guess, the beginning of Psych is that he he helps them solve one case, but then because he was so good at solving it, they tried to accuse him of being involved. So then he was just like, well, and it was just one of those dumb little lies that blew up. And he's like, well, I'm actually a psychic, but then he just gets in too deep, and it's like, okay, well, I'm along for the ride now, so whatever.
I don't know.
I never once got out of it that like being a cop was his lifelong dream. He just happened to always be involved in that lifestyle because of his dad too.
Okay, maybe so. I mean, I wouldn't know. I've never seen this is the only episode I've seen, but like, this is season 6. At this point, wouldn't he like change tact a little bit if he's in this deep for 6 fucking years?
I mean, I don't think you would be wrong at all if this show was a drama. But I mean, as far as you know, logic and stuff being silly, like it is indeed a comedy. Like it's a sitcom.
Even then, like, how at this point are Sean and Gus actually employed by the police? Because if they're not, I'm wondering how they haven't been arrested for impeding an investigation yet.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you
the
mentioned
same way
how
is Batman employed by the police? Like I
no,
don't.
but Batman can actually kick the police's ass. I don't think Sean and Gus are doing anything if the police decide to come after them.
Okay.
If anything, they're gonna get handcuffed, and Lassie's gonna be like, "I thought you would have seen that coming." Um,
Oh, I see what you did there.
and you mentioned how Sean and Gus really take the backseat in this episode, and that was gonna be one point I was gonna bring up. Like, they barely fucking do anything in this episode. Like, they're just kind of alone for the ride, and because of that, at the very least, I don't feel like this episode is a good episode to try to sell the show on anybody. Like, I think you need to pick an episode where the main character is more prominent. Um, I will say that Corey Feldman's guest appearance was pretty funny. That was pretty funny.
I really like Gus eating that man's sandwich.
Yeah, that was.
I'm as I'm as hungry as a mug.
He ate that shit real quick too, didn't he? Like, we looked away
and then
from him
I
for literally like a camera cut, and it was gone.
and I just love them trying to get into the house with the door being locked. And he's like, "Quick, Gus, give me your credit card." Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. Now kick down the door.
yeah.
I guess in some ways, like I just went for which episode with this and New Girl, like which episodes made me laugh the most.
So, like, ranking this episode, it wouldn't make me it wouldn't make me seek the show out on my own, but it wouldn't make me turn it down either. Like, if you came over and were just like, let's watch a few episodes, I'd be like, all right, turn it on, let's do this.
I I will very much see that challenge, and eventually one day, I don't know when, but I will very much have a couple more episodes to be like, okay, I think these are the cream of the crop.
All right, Count Chocula.
Gus, how many times do I have to tell you this? Nobody else remembers Blackula except us and Quentin Tarantino.
All right, well, we will move on to the final show for tonight, Frasier. And you had me watch season 4, episode 11, 3 Days of the Condo.
Mm-hmm.
Why this show? Why this episode?
So Frasier was very much my show with my pop. That was our show we would watch together. I don't think we saw the entire series together. There were some, as much as he loved Frasier, there were some seasons where he's like, "Yeah, you can skip that one." Um, he very much had the belief that like he pointed out where a lot of shows do that thing where there's always these two characters. A man, I guess because television wasn't quite progressing fast enough, it was usually a man and a woman who they always did the will they won't they,
hmm
and in this episode, it had been a while since I've seen this one, so forgive me if I'm a little fuzzy on the timeline here. it's obviously Niles and Daphne are supposed to get together eventually because Niles is in love with Daphne. Um, and I can't remember if he's already with her in this episode
He's
by
not.
the okay. So but if it's not clear in this one, it's clear in almost all of them that he is in love with her, and that's something that a lot of other series do, is they do the will they won't they.
Hmm.
And my pop pointed out is a lot of the times they do that, by the time they finally get together, it's just not as interesting. So that's why he was like, yeah, you can skip this season where they're like getting married and whatnot, because there's not as much of like a conflict of like, will Niles pull it off? But
Hmm.
anyway, the point is, my pop loved Frasier so much. That was his favorite show of all time. And he very much thought, if you didn't think Frasier was funny, you must be stupid. And
Oh, well, I got some
which
bad news.
which which very much led to a great interaction with Trevor and Koga, which was Trevor's like, yeah, a lot of Americans, the only character they can relate to is the dog, and to which Koga went, oh yeah, there were probably a lot of guys who turned it off after the theme song and was like, oh wait, hey, well, hold on, you lost me at scrambled eggs. But in this episode is, I think you see a lot of the dynamic between Frasier and, you get to see him with Niles and him with his father, but then also you get to see like how he interacts with the environment in which he lives in, like their
Hmm.
home, like the complex.
Hmm.
And also this episode is the hardest I have ever seen my pop laugh at something. It's just, by the time he gets to the finale of this episode, my pop was like hooting and hollering so much. I thought the neighbors were going to start banging on the walls. But so I throw it back to you.
So yeah, I've never seen a single episode of Frasier. The closest thing I've seen to an episode of Frasier is the one episode of The Simpsons where they introduced Sideshow Bob's brother, because Sideshow Bob is voiced by Kelsey Grammer. And the episode they introduced his brother, they had his brother voiced by David Hyde Pierce, who plays his brother in Frasier. And there's even like
Right.
a scene where they're in his Sideshow Bob's brother's apartment, and it looks like the apartment from Frasier. Um,
Hmm.
and I mean, that's a great Simpsons episode. I
Hmm.
almost had you watch that one for my list, but I went with a different one. But
Right.
no, this episode of like this was fucking funny. Like out of the shows you had me watch, this is probably the one I enjoyed the most. Like
Wow.
the quips just never fucking end throughout the whole episode. Like they just don't fucking stop.
Yes.
The energy never slows down. The shit doesn't let up at all. And like
Hmm.
this fucking episode, there are so many moments in this where I was like, this is literally what would happen if Blake and I lived together. Like
Hmm.
especially that bit when Kelsey Grammer, like when Frasier's going into that fucking rant about how this is why things are so bad now because people are too concerned about their own desires and needs. And Niles, is this Claire spoken for? It's mine. Put it back. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's us. That is us in a nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
literally what it would be like if we had lived together. We would even be arguing with the housekeeper over the art being askew instead of facing forward.
I don't know how much money we have in this alternate universe, but can we take a vacation there?
Niles is my spirit animal. Like that, I am that man. Just very sarcastic and petty. And that's just kind
And
of this whole show in a nutshell. Just very highbrow pettiness, and I'm here
yeah,
for it. I love it. Everybody is high class, but still wants theirs at the end of the day.
yes. Niles, I mean, and this is a compliment I give to the show as a whole. Niles was like perfectly, David Hyde Pierce was perfectly cast as
Hmm.
Kelsey Grammer's brother.
Hmm.
There was a Cracked article once that was like, yeah, they absolutely look nothing alike. And I'm like, honestly, I kind of think they could pass for brothers in real
Yeah,
life,
yeah.
but also like, and you don't get as much of a taste of it in this one. But there are a lot of episodes where Niles almost out Frasier's Frasier, and you can totally see him doing that. Yeah, yeah, it's just, yeah, like you said, the quips and the segment where they spoof like Deep Throat and All the
Yeah,
President's Men, like
yeah,
the meeting in the
yeah.
parking lot. It's like, well, the next time you're going to try to have a secret meeting with someone, don't drive off with your vanity plates.
Dr. Dorfman.
But yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. The flavor of this comedy is high class petty, and
Yeah.
it is rather
Askew, Daphne,
tasteful.
askew.
just just like it shows how what I said to you yesterday over text was it shows how much of a great acting job Kelsey Grammer did because in real life Kelsey Grammer is a right wing dumbass. He is a douchebag,
Yeah, yeah.
and but he does an exceptional job, an exceptional performance parodying the limousine liberals that he surely resents in real life and has contempt for.
Hmm.
So good for him.
Yeah. And to continue on with how you were saying how David Hyde Pierce was perfectly cast in this show. I mean, I think that also shows when he was asked to do that episode of The Simpsons where he played Sideshow Bob's brother, he said, "Normally I don't do these kind of things, but I mean, how often do you get to work with somebody like Kelsey Grammer and play his brother?"
it reminds me it reminds me of another episode of Frasier where he basically gets pranked on the air by like two other radio hosts that are like the new kids in the
Hmm.
station, and his dad becomes a huge fan of these bits in the morning of this other radio show that are basically at his son's expense,
Hmm.
and Frasier has a line where he's like, "That's that's so terrible, Dad. Why are you laughing at my pain like this?" And his dad literally goes, "Oh, come on, Frasier. It's not every day you get to hear your own son on the radio." And he does that like signature Kelsey Grammer huff and puff and just I'm on the radio every day. So so beautiful. But please get to the part that I'm biting at the bit for you to talk about,
The
which is
finale.
a master class in build up and payoff, in my
Oh my
opinion.
God, I was in tears during this final bit where because he's running for to be head of the board for like the committee that like determines the rules for the condo complex and all that. And
Mm-hmm.
because the woman in charge is like an absolute miserable old crow, the stereotypical, won't let you do anything, is just always on the lookout for reasons to, give you a citation.
Which timeout was it just me or did she totally look like discount Professor McGonagall?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Like that's what I was
go ahead.
thinking too. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it's like the day he's supposed to, like they're supposed to vote, and it pretty much looks like the election's like his by a landslide, and he's like he's ready to go in there and make like his opening speech before they all vote, and he's like his dad got like cited for something. He thinks like his dad got cited for like letting the dog out or whatever. So he's like, oh, I
yeah,
finally got the perfect thing to throw in her face, the really like final nail in the coffin for her. So he goes down to the
yeah.
board meeting to like really rub it in, and he's like he's got big dick energy. He's ready to go. But it turns out the
No pun
reason,
intended there.
yeah, the reason his dad the problem is he starts like defending his dad because he's like, look at this citation you gave my dad last night. Well, I'm surprised you're not too embarrassed to bring it up. And what he doesn't know is the reason his dad got a citation was for being in the hot tub, fucking butt ass naked. Um, it just poor choice of words. And just when I thought he couldn't find another way to dig the hole, he dug it deeper. Like just when I thought he couldn't go any deeper, he not only went deeper, he caused a cave in with every dig. And is is he really hurting anybody if he decides to let Eddie out every once in a while? He named it Eddie. I mean, not the name I would have chosen. I would have picked something more whimsical like Puck.
What was the name of the old lady neighbor with the cat?
Oh fuck! It was some real hoity-toity like old English name, like
Yeah, yeah. And he's like, I noticed you've been doing the same thing with your Fluffy.
yeah, like that shit had me screaming. And you wouldn't believe the looks on the children when he whips it out, when he whips the little guy out.
just just you oh man, if I wish I could have recorded my pop and I watching this episode. I mean, we we loved it so much. my mom had dropped me off there for the evening, and she went to run errands or something. We watched this episode, and just as it was wrapping up, we were still laughing. The credits were rolling, the DVD was about to end, and my mom walks in and she goes, "What is so funny?" And my pop just goes, "Mariah, you just got to watch this." And we literally watched the entire episode all over again just to show it to mom.
What'd she think?
It was, oh, she loved it.
That's awesome.
My mom and my pop, like, they agreed with me where, in my personal opinion, in my humble opinion, this was the funniest episode of any sitcom ever. Like, I mean, if you were to take all my chuckles from watching the entirety of Friends, it would not even equal 1 minute of this. Like, it was great. This episode was funnier than, the t-shirt material that people quote Seinfeld for over and over again and beat that into the ground.
Yeah.
Like, yes, in hindsight, Seinfeld aged to be very mean-spirited and also just not as funny as people remember it.
Yeah,
But
there was an episode of Seinfeld on in the lobby while I was getting my oil changed today, and I watched it and I thought it was fucking boring.
not just, yeah, I mean, it's not just that, but like a lot of it is very like overly cynical, which I guess like is Jerry Seinfeld's brand, like whatever, good for him. Everybody needs their own style and signature, but yes, I am very much on board for not mean-spirited, but high-class petty.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So,
no, like I ranking this show, I loved this episode, and I would very much like to like sit down and just watch just have an evening where we just watch this show back to back.
hmm, yeah, yeah. I'll definitely have to think of a few more episodes to send your way. There's a great bit where
You still
Niles is dating a woman who's a chain smoker.
do you still have the DVDs?
I mean, I have Paramount Plus now, which there's
Well, I mean
that.
it's on
So,
Hulu, so I have Hulu, so
oh, there you go. There you go. I
yeah.
will. Yeah, I'll definitely have to think of a few more. So I am a, a shame about Psych and New Girl, but I am overwhelmingly relieved that I at least did not fail my mission with Frasier. Because if I had to get one of them right of the comedies tonight, I'm glad I got Frasier right.
Just don't touch my eclair.
It's mine. Put it back.
It's mine. Put it back. Oh man, if I was Niles, I would have been eating that fucking eclair in the other room while he was bitching about the board.
Oh man,
All right, well
beautiful.
that is our episode for tonight. So, that was a good episode. I enjoyed this.
Me too. I'm glad we did this. So, and I'm looking forward to being getting all finished up and ready for your episode.
Have you started any of mine yet?
I am very excited to get ready and be for your episode.
Say no more. No, I'm really curious to, because I'll just let everybody know what shows I have you watching. I have you watching Whose Line, House,
Mhm,
The Simpsons,
mhm.
Legend of Korra, X-Files, and that's it. Yeah, Whose Line, House, The Simpsons, Legend of Korra, and X-Files.
Mhm.
I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on House.
Um, should I, since you said it's actually part two of a two-part, should I just go ahead and watch part one just to be better, like
I mean,
in the mood for it?
you don't have to. I gave you some context yesterday for where part two picks
Right.
up, and that's honestly all you need. I feel like,
Hmm.
just to
Hmm.
kind of set the stage. But if you want to watch the previous episode, be my guest. I ain't gonna stop you.
Right. That's fair. That's fair. And what exactly was the Simpsons episode again?
Homer
I
goes
have
to
it saved on
college.
my phone. Homer goes to college. Yes. There you
Classic.
go.
It's one of the first. It's probably like the episode I have like the earliest memories of watching. It's a great
I
episode.
mean, with all due respect to Mr. Simpson, but the sentence "Homer goes to college" just sounds like a disaster.
Oh, buddy. Just you wait. Just you wait, baby girl.
All right. Well, oh, before we wrap it up, do you want to go ahead and remind the audience of your upcoming shows?
Yes, next Friday, October 22nd in Kaiser, West Virginia, I will be hosting a stand-up show with, I believe, 5 other comedians at the In the On Main Theater, Main Street, Kaiser, West Virginia. Show starts at 7. Tickets are $10. So, definitely check my social medias for a post about those to get your tickets. If you're in the area, definitely come check it out. And then the following month, November 12th, I will be performing stand-up at the Embassy Theater in downtown Cumberland. So again, be sure to check my social medias. You can find me Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Don John Laughs for all that and for also more upcoming episodes on this show. And you can also follow my awesome co-host BVJ at Puka Saucy on all those same social medias. Follow the Fat Minute at Fat Minute Radio. And if you missed this episode, tuned in late, we'll be on all the fun stuff: Spotify, Pandora, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts tomorrow. So on that note, for BVJ, I'm Don John. Thank you. Fuck you. Good night.